Every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., someone knocked on our bedroom door, 3 neat taps that sliced through our condo's silence like a box cutter. On the 19th floor of a glassy high-rise in River North Chicago, the city slept under sodium streetlights and wet pavement. I snapped awake, pulse in my ears. Again. Through the peephole, Linda Hale, my mother-in-law, retired English teacher, silk robe, hair pinned into a perfect gray knot. A smile that never touched her eyes. "Ryan, Nora," she breathed just loud enough to carry. "I heard something. Wanted to make sure you're safe." Behind me, my husband Ryan Hale, Golden Boy architect, with a hand-drawn competition entry due next week. Slept hard mouth, parted breath even. The knocking didn't reach him. Nothing did. "Everything's fine, Linda," I whispered through the crack. "Please go back to bed, it's late." Her gaze knifed past my shoulder into our room, taking inventory. After a beat, she nodded, shuffled away slippers, whispering on wood, until the guest room door clicked shut. I leaned against ours until my legs stopped shaking. By breakfast, she was the picture of maternal warmth, oatmeal simmered with cinnamon. A plate of sliced apples asking about my marketing campaign, like last night didn't exist. Ryan hummed about his project, eyes lit, hands shaping air. I could barely taste the coffee. The drive to work was worse. Traffic crawled down Ohio Street. The radio spun up a song from the night he asked me out on the dorm roof at Northwestern January. Cold breath fogging that earnest promise. "I'll build you a home so safe you'll never worry again." I stared out at the river, glass-topped and gray. Safe, I thought, if you don't count the woman who knocks at 3:17 a.m., with a smile that feels like a dare. At lunch, I told my best friend Ava Turner, sharp-eyed attorney, spine like rebar everything. The knocks, the smile, the way Linda's voice floated just enough to be heard. "This isn't you being sensitive," Ava said, folding her hands. "It's psychological pressure. Don't argue, document. Audio can be explained away as old people muttering. Get something anyway. Then if needed, escalate." I went home and bought a micro recorder disguised as a thumb drive. Extra long battery, magnetic back. It arrived the next afternoon, small and cold as a coin in my palm. That night with the condo. Dark and Ryan snoring, I worked by the glow from the street, tiptoed to the door. Pressed the recorder to the metal frame above the hinge, felt the magnet bite. A soft click of the switch. 1 heartbeat, 2. Back to bed. Sleep didn't come. I counted the refrigerator's hums and the elevator's distant coughs. I counted the minutes to 3 sank. Morning before Ryan stirred, I peeled the recorder free and locked myself in the bathroom. It paired to my phone with a dull chime. I scrolled to the timestamp between 3 and 4 a.m. and pressed play. Air conditioner, faint apartment, settling my own breath. Then slippers, slow, deliberate, a sigh. Linda's whisper close enough to fog the mic, all that makeup and no manners, bleeding my son dry. A papery chuckle took him from me and made him soft. I went cold. A pause. 3 orderly knocks, knock, 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 like a metronome. My voice thin, careful. "Everything's fine, Linda." Her answer, sweet poison. We'll see how long you stay pleased with yourself." The file ended with her slippers receding down the hall. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. My hands whitened around the phone until the bones stood up under the skin. Evidence. Not much, but something that didn't depend on whether Ryan felt like believing me that day. Breakfast again. Oatmeal, apples, a dollop of honey. Linda patted Ryan's shoulder. Told him to pack a sweater because the weather turns on a dime. He grinned. I watched the performance like a bad play I'd already seen. When she left for her senior yoga class downstairs, I asked Ryan to sit on the sofa. He was knotting a tie, still half in his work head. 2 minutes, I said. No comment until the end. He frowned at the tone, sat anyway. I set my phone on the coffee table and hit play. Slippers. The sigh, the mutter, bleeding my son dry. The polite knock. My voice, her whisper. "We'll see how long you stay pleased with yourself." Ryan's expression went from bored to blinking to something like confusion. He stared at the phone like it had bitten him. When it ended, I waited. "For I'm sorry, Nora. For I didn't know. For anything that sounded like seeing me." He exhaled through his nose, tapped the screen to black. looked up with wounded disbelief. "You bugged my mom." The room tipped. "That's what you heard. You put a listening device on our bedroom door." "On my mother." His voice rose and roughened something I'd only ever heard at construction sites. "She's 70. She gets jumpy at night. And your response is surveillance. She knocks every night and whispers insults about me, Ryan." I kept my voice low because if I let it climb, I'd start screaming. "I needed proof because talking to you wasn't working." He stood, ran a hand through his hair, paced hard lines into the rug. "She's old. Sometimes old people say things. You don't trap them with gadgets and then—" "What, gloat? This isn't a one-off," I said. "She's been doing it for a week, the same time. The same 3 knocks, the same smile." He stopped, met my eyes for 1 second. "That is my mother. And I am your wife." Silence bloomed thick and ugly. In it, I heard everything he wasn't saying. "She raised me alone after my dad died. She sacrificed. You should be more generous. Why can't you be the bigger person?" "Delete it," he said finally. "Please? I'll talk to her about boundaries. But you can't spy on family Nora. That's a line." A laugh escaped me short-shocked. The line was crossed at 3:17 a.m., 7 nights in a row. He flinched. "I have a deadline. I can't. Let's just have dinner tonight and calm down." "Calm down?" The phrase slid between my ribs and lodged there. That afternoon, I met Ava again, told her everything the turn the conversation had taken. "Expected," she said. "You're asking him to redraw the picture of his mother. Most people don't grab the eraser on the first pass." She slid her coffee aside. "So we make the picture redraw itself." Audio was step 1. What's step 2? Ava didn't blink eyes. That night, I ordered a hidden camera disguised as a matte white essential oil diffuser, the kind of thing that blends into a River North living room and smells faintly of lavender. While Linda watched game shows and Ryan sketched facade studies at the dining table, I tracked the package across the Midwest like it was a rescue team. 2 days later, I feigned a stomachache and worked from home. When Ryan left for a site visit and Linda headed to her senior's book club, I unboxed the diffuser, paired it to an app, and set it high on the bookshelf between Ryan's architecture magazines and a piece of cobalt glass Linda loved to polish. From there, the lens held our whole living room front door hallway, the bedroom door where the knocks landed. A thin ribbon of lavender curled out as cover. The app showed a live view crisp enough to count the stitches on the rug. I sat on the sofa and watched our quiet staged life glow on my screen. For 48 hours, nothing happened. Linda was saintly. No knocks, no sighs. She cooked chicken soup, told me to put my feet up, asked mildly about my deadlines. It was enough to make me doubt my own spine. On day 3, Ryan came home carrying a cardboard cylinder of priceless paper, his hand-drawn presentation board for an international competition, the sort of thing that could change a career. He unrolled it on the coffee table, smoothed the corners with reverent hands, and stepped back to admire it. I said, "Please put it in your office before bed." In a minute, he murmured, already measuring with his eyes. The next morning, after we both left for work, I checked the app on my lunch break. The video showed Linda watering the succulents, humming, moving slowly toward the coffee table. She paused at the edge, looked down at the drawing, and then just slightly hitched as if catching her balance. The watering can tipped. A wide, slow sheet of water spread like an oil slick across 6 months of Ryan's lines. Linda gasped, pat, pat, pat with paper towels. Too late, ink feathered, pencil bloomed. The board sagged into pulp. If you watched once, it was a clumsy accident. If you watched 3 times, you saw the minuscule beat before the stumble. The decision hiding in a half-inch of muscle. That night, Ryan stood over the ruined drawing colorless. Linda clutched his arm, eyes wet. "Oh, honey, it's all my fault. I'm so clumsy." "Nora, why didn't you tuck this away for him? You know how important it is." He spun on me, hurt, looking for a target. "I told you this was critical." "I told you to put it in your office," I said very evenly. We didn't sleep. He didn't speak. I lay awake looking at the ceiling and understood finally that audio would never be enough for a man raised to translate everything his mother did into love. He needed to see. He needed to hear and see at the same time. The camera had given me both, and that meant the next move wouldn't be a plea. It would be a presentation. The diffuser cam watched while our life pretended to behave. Day 1. Linda folded laundry and asked me if chamomile upset my stomach. Day 2, she clipped basil on the balcony and FaceTimed a bridge partner about book selections. No knocks, no whispers. At 2:41, aimed on day 3, the motion alert pulsed my phone awake. I slid out from under the duvet, turned the brightness down, and watched from bed. The living room glowed faintly lavender from the diffuser. Linda padded in, wearing the same plum silk robe slippers soft as moth wings. Instead of drifting toward our door, she crossed to the antique walnut sideboard she'd insisted we rescue from storage when she moved in. From her pocket, a tiny brass key. The lock chirped. A hidden drawer slid open like a stage trick. She lifted out a sun-faded photo album, wrapped in tissue, carried it to the sofa, just off-center from the camera, then angled herself where the lens still caught her profile in hands. She started turning pages slow, almost reverent. On a glossy 4x6, she stopped. Her fingers hovered, then stroked the image so tenderly the gesture felt indecent. "Liv," she whispered, clear as glass on the mic. "Look at him now!" I couldn't see the photo, but I didn't have to. I knew the name from a stray mention at a barbecue months ago, Liv Lamb, the one who got away. Linda's voice changed soft, coaxing, resentful. "He laughs less. He's thinner. He was happy with you, obedient." A thin laugh. I should have fought harder. "If I hadn't been so weak that summer, you would be my daughter now." She turned her head toward our closed bedroom door. "But don't worry, we're almost back on track." She tucked the album to her chest, breathed in like it smelled of 20-something June, then returned it to the drawer and relocked the sideboard. On her way out, she paused at our door. No knock tonight. Just that same smile, the one that never reached her eyes. I screen captured the still where her fingers rested on the photo and saved the clip with a label that didn't care about anyone's feelings. 02:41 a.m. Leave. Monologue. MP4. At 7:10 a.m., while the kettle murmured, I plugged my laptop into the bedroom TV. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, tying his Oxford's mind already on elevations and jury panels. "Please watch this," I said. "No commentary until it's over." A flicker of annoyance. Then he saw the timestamp, saw his mother pocket a key we didn't know existed, saw her cradle an album like a relic. The words filled the room. "He was happy with you, obedient. We're almost back on track." Color slid from his face in 2 shades shock, then something brittle. When the clip ended, he didn't speak. He stood, walked out, and I followed at a distance that felt safer than closeness. Linda was unloading the dishwasher, humming Moon River like a person without secrets. Ryan set the tablet on the island and hit play again. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Mom, explain." The spoon in her hand stilled. On screen, Linda whispered to the ghost of a girl. Real-time Linda blinked, smile cracking. "What is this?" Her gaze darted to the diffuser, then to me, then back to her son's face. "Explain," he said, quieter. Her eyes glossed. The first tear slid cinematic, perfectly timed. "Ryan, I miss who you were. That's not a crime. You were light and fun, and you listened. I've been alone for so long." She reached for his forearm, the same way she steadied him crossing streets when he was 5. "Everything I do is because I love you." He didn't shake her hand off. He also didn't take it. "You said I was obedient." She flinched as if the word itself had teeth. "I meant considerate. You used to be considerate." And back on track means what exactly, I asked. My voice surprised me, flat as a level. She turned to me, all tremble and tremor. "Nora, you misunderstand." I was reminiscing. "That album, those were sweet years. Liv was. Chosen," I said, "by you." I wanted what was best for my son. Her tears thickened. The performance turned from mother wounded to mother martyr. "You two brought me here. You asked me to live with you because you said you were family. Now you spy on me in my pajamas and call it proof." She looked back to Ryan, desperate for purchase. "Honey, tell her this is cruel." He stared at the tablet instead. The still frame had caught her hand mid-stroke on a younger version of his face, next to a woman I could only see in outline. His mouth opened shut. When he finally spoke, the words were small. A boy's question asked by a man, "Why the knocking?" "The building is loud at night," she said instantly. "Pipes, elevators. I check because I care. And the things you whispered outside our door," her eyes skittered. "People think ugly thoughts. We don't say them. I'm 70. Sometimes I mumble. There it was, the script he'd used on me a dozen times, now recited by its author. Ryan exhaled, pressed his fingertips to his brow as if pinpoint pressure could reorder neurons. I need a minute, he said, voice sanded down. He carried the tablet to his office and closed the door. The click had the same finality as a judge's gavel. Linda set the spoon down. The hummingbird tremble stopped. Beneath it, I saw the wire frame the sweet was hung on. You're making him choose, she said to me, no tremor now. No, I said, you did, at 2:41 a.m. We lasted a day in a whiteout truce. Ryan worked late. I cooked for myself and labeled leftovers like roommates do. Linda watched home renovation shows on mute and texted with someone whose name she kept angled away from me. That night, I rewound the album clip until I could read the reflection in the dead TV behind Linda. A sliver of face clarified in the glass, a girl with dark hair in a summer sundress, head tucked into college Ryan's shoulder. On the table in front of the TV, the photo's caption glinted in silver gel pen. 2 letters were legible in the reflection backward, but unmistakable Vi. The next morning, Ryan came to the kitchen, unshaven eyes rimmed red like he'd fought sleep and lost. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You don't owe me a speech, I said. You owe us boundaries. He nodded once as if I'd given him permission he'd been seeking since childhood. He took the tablet and walked toward the guest room. I didn't follow. Walls in old houses learn family secrets by heart. New walls do too. Through 15 feet of drywall, I heard him knock softly, and his voice low and unfamiliar. Mom, we're done with 3 a.m. Anything like that happens again, you're finding another place to live. A beat. Then Linda's sob, a rougher, unshaped sound than the earlier tears. You'd throw me out. Your mother, after everything. After this, he said, yes. The rest of the day, we pretended to be normal. He forwarded me a lunch article like he used to. I sent him a dumb meme. Linda didn't come out of her room until dinner, when she moved cutlery around for 20 minutes and ate nothing. At 11:53 p.m., I silenced my phone and set it face up on the nightstand anyway. My eyes wouldn't stay closed. When sleep finally took me, it was a choppy surface easy to break. No alert woke me. No knock. At 2:58 a.m., purely out of habit, I reached for the phone and scrubbed through footage. The living room was empty, the hall empty. The guest room door stayed shut. At 3:29 a.m., the guest room door opened. Linda padded out, not toward our room, not toward the sideboard. She walked to the kitchen, poured water into a saucepan, and stood with both hands braced on the counter while the burner clicked and caught. Steam fogged the camera for a second when she carried the cup past. She didn't drink. She set the mug on the far end of the coffee table, the place Ryan spreads drawings when he can't sleep, and looked at it like a chess problem. Then she turned off every light and went back to bed. I stared at the paused frame, steam curling above a mug parked in his preferred clearing, and understood we had stopped the knocks. We hadn't stopped the game. By sunrise, I'd already texted Ava. Video changed him. She's shifting tactics. I need to get ahead of it. Ava called on her walk to court. Good. Keep the clips organized and off-site. Treat your condo like opposing counsel's office. I can do that. And Nora? Her voice softened. If you decide to show him more, make it undeniable. Not interpretive dance undeniable. Jury box undeniable. Understood. That evening, Ryan came home carrying a cardboard tube, again the rebuilt competition board redrawn in 2 white-knuckle days. He unrolled it in the office. I hovered in the doorway, lavender still ghosting the air from the fake diffuser. I'll lock it, he said without looking up. Good, I said. We both heard it, then the faint scrape of the sideboard's tiny lock from the living room. He went very still. So did I. He set the board down and walked out. Not fast, not slow. I stopped in the hall and watched him reach the sideboard, test the drawer, and stare at the empty surface where the album had been for 10 minutes in the night. Is there something you need to tell me? He asked into the air. The condo answered with HVAC hush. He closed the drawer and looked at me, finally. Really looked like a man measuring a span he wasn't sure he could cross. Tomorrow morning, he said, voice steady. Play me everything. He didn't mean just the album. He meant the knocks, the whispers, the water, the smile. He meant, make me see what you've been surviving. I queued the files into a single reel before we slept. Labeled, time-stamped clean. No commentary, no cuts that could be read as malice. A presentation, not a plea. 7:05 a.m. I mirrored my laptop to the bedroom TV and pressed play. No voiceover, just a timeline, the knocks at 3:10, the hissed insults, the stumble that drowned Ryan's hand-drawn board, the 2:41 a.m. album, the name Live breathed like prayer. The smile that never reached Linda's eyes. Ryan watched with his jaw set and his hands open on his knees like he was trying not to grip the bed. The room held its breath through every clip. When the reel ended, the TV went to black and threw our faces back at us. He stood. Okay. One word scraped raw. We crossed the hall together. Linda was at the island, peeling a clementine, segmenting it with the focus of a surgeon. Citrus mist hung over the sink. Ryan set the tablet down and replayed the 10:41 a.m. He monologue, and he didn't raise his voice. Mom, what is this? The knife paused. She looked up, smile on, then saw the screen, the key, the album, the whisper. The smile fell in sections like something built on a bad foundation. I miss who you were, she said, finally, the tears arriving on cue. That isn't a crime. You used to be attentive. You listened. I've been alone a long time, Ryan. I did what I did because I love you. You said obedient, he answered. Quiet, precise. Her eyes flicked to me. You two brought me here, and now you spy on me in my robe. Nora, you're twisting. The knocks, he asked, cutting in. Old buildings creak, she said instantly. I check because I care. And old people mutter Ryan. Sometimes I say things I don't mean. The script she used on both of us said back to him by its author. I watched it land, watched the first unambiguous crack. He shut the tablet, exhaled like a tire losing air. Here are the new rules, he said. No more 3 a.m. visits, no tests, no accidents anywhere near my work. If any of that happens again, you'll need to find another place to live. I mean it. She stared, stunned that the boy she'd raised to say yes had found a no. You'd throw out your mother. I'd protect my marriage, he said. The day went gray and quiet. Ryan worked from the office with the door shut. I cooked eggs I didn't want and labeled leftovers like a roommate. Linda retreated to the guest room, then reemerged to wipe an already clean counter, every motion measured. That night, I stitched the clips into a single file, backed it to cloud and thumb drive, and slid the drive under a stack of tax returns in the safe. Evidence had to live somewhere a story couldn't touch. For a few weeks, the condo turned performative normal. Linda adjusted her halo and kept it polished. Ryan started walking with his shoulders forward, like his body was catching up to a decision his brain had already made. He took my hand on the way to the garage. He locked his drawings in his office. He tried. Then the test turned positive. 2 pink lines. My hands shook so hard the plastic rattled against the sink. I stepped from the bathroom and held the stick out like a passport to another country. Ryan read it twice, once with his eyes, and once with his whole face. He laughed, this loose, startled sound I hadn't heard since grad school scooped me up, spun me. We're having a baby, he said into my neck like a vow. For a night, joy knocked the oxygen back into our rooms. The next morning, Linda stood at the stove with chicken broth and a look I didn't trust. She fussed over me, piled fruit in bowls I'd never seen before, Googled prenatal vitamins out loud. The sweetness had a seam. When Ryan wasn't looking, her gaze slid, calculating. I stocked that away, with all the other labels, not evidence, not yet. 2 weeks later, the Hale family did what the Hales always did for big milestones, train, not plane. Let's make it an Amtrak adventure, Ryan said, booking a roomette to Detroit for his grandparents' 50th. He packed snacks and travel pillows like a dad already, which bruised me with love. We had the tiny compartment, 2 facing seats, a sliding door, a fold-down bed. I got queasy as the Midwest unspooled in a flat winter reel. Around midnight, I stepped out to the vestibule between cars for air. That's where I heard Linda. She stood with her back to me near the junction window phone, cupped to her jaw, voice pitched small to fit the metal hush. Yes, June, I got it. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. The scent is distinctive, though. A little laugh, all sugar. You're a lifesaver. June. June Truliv's mother, of course. My fingertip found the vestibule rail and squeezed until pain steadied me. Linda's voice trimmed down to business. I'll start as soon as we're back. Daily, yes. No, I won't say a word. Ryan believes anything I tell him. He always has. Blood went cold, then hot. Start what? She paused, listening, then lower, satisfied. Right, we'll keep it quiet. She ended the call, rolled her shoulders, and went back toward our car, humming. I stepped into the shadow of the connecting door until she passed, then walked the other direction, like I had always intended to be there, counting my breaths, until the numbers made sense again. Back in the roomette, Ryan dozed, propped against the window mouth, soft hand still on the snack bag like he fell asleep mid-fuss. I sat on the opposite seat and watched the dark scroll past. When we returned to Chicago, Linda's care doubled in speed and volume. She got up early to brew what the old aunties swear by drove across town to a Chinese herbal market she just discovered, simmered amber broth for hours until the entire condo smelled like earth and iron. Drink while it's hot, she said, setting a bowl the color of potting soil in front of me. Good for the baby. Ryan beamed and tucked a napkin under the bowl like it was a celebration cake. I smiled back and raised the spoon. The liquid hit my tongue, bitter floral, something I couldn't name, and something I could wrong. I made it to our bedroom before the floor dropped. Dumped the bowl in the toilet, flushed twice, scrubbed with cleanser, cracked the window. My heart climbed my throat and wouldn't climb down. Day 2, same bowl, different smile. I felt nauseous and laid down. Day 3, I took it to the guest bath while Linda answered a call in the foyer. Heard the name June again through the door. I poured the tonic into a mason jar I'd stashed under the sink, sealed it tight, and shoved it behind extra toilet paper rolls. I palmed 2 roots from the paper bag on the counter and wrapped them in a zip bag inside a box of tea. I texted Ava, need a lab, quiet, today. She didn't ask why. She never does. Bring sample plus raw herbs, 12:30 side lot. That morning, I also made a prenatal checkup with a doctor in a neighborhood where no one knew our names. I told Ryan I had a client meeting and told Linda nothing. The ultrasound tech was kind and chatty until she wasn't. The doctor took longer than I like to say. The heartbeat is there but weak for your dates. Size is measuring small by about a week. She spoke carefully, each word set down like porcelain. Big caution on any non-prescribed herbals. Avoid everything you can't verify. Her avoid echoed like it had a hard edge. I drove to Ava's meeting spot and handed over the mason jar and the harvested roots. Friend at a state lab, she said. Blind intake, 48 hours. 48 hours, I repeated like it was a tiny bridge I just had to cross. Those 2 days stretched. Linda ladled. I excused, Ryan glowed. I lied. I learned which plants on our balcony would drink a bowl of brown liquid without dying. I learned what fear tastes like when you swallow it on purpose. At 5:42 p.m., on day 2, my phone rang on my desk at work. AVA flashed on the screen. I let it sound once, twice, then answered and walked fast to the stairwell. Say it plain, I said. I will, she said. Paper rattled on her end. The broth you gave me had high concentrations of Ligusticum chuanxiong, Sichuan lavage, and Carthamus tinctorius safflower. Both are strong blood movers, contraindicated in pregnancy. The levels in this sample are not an accident. The stairwell tilted, steadied. What about the raw mix? Same. And the proportions look intentional. My guy wrote, likely to induce uterine contractions with repeated dosing. We stayed quiet, a full breath. Then Ava's voice came back, steel. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a method. I closed my eyes and saw the bowl, the steam, the smile. Then the train vestibule, the whisper he always has. A picture came into focus so sharp it hurt. Okay, I said, we do this right. That night, I didn't argue or accuse. I printed the lab report and the ultrasound summary and slid them into a thin folder with a still from the live monologue. When I walked through the door, Linda and Ryan were on the sofa like a stock photo of family. The TV was low. The diffuser's lavender pretended the air was gentle. I set the folder on the coffee table and opened it like a book I was teaching from. Page 1, I said, tapping the ultrasound. Heartbeat weak, growth lagging. Doctor says avoid unknown herbs. I turned the page. Page 2, these are the herbs in your broth. They cause contractions. They're banned for pregnant women. Ryan took the paper with both hands like it might cut. Linda didn't touch it. Her face had gone slack, then pinched, then impossibly hurt. I didn't know, she said to Ryan, not to me. A friend gave me a recipe. I thought it was good for circulation. June Chu isn't a friend, I said. Calm, cold. She's Liv's mother. I heard you on the train. All the color crawled out of Ryan's face. He looked at the report again, at the characters he could not love into being harmless. He looked at his mother last. "Tell me you didn't know," he said. "Not a demand, a prayer." Linda reached for the only weapon she had ever trusted: tears. "I was trying to help," she whispered. She's not right for you, Ryan. She took you from me." I panicked. I made a mistake. I stared at her and thought about the word mistake. A misspelled name on a latte is a mistake. A misread exit sign is a mistake. Simmering the same bowl 3 days running with the same circulation herbs while my baby's heartbeat lagged, that had a plan. Ryan's shoulders, which had inched toward me for weeks, slumped. He set the report down like his hands couldn't hold it anymore and walked down the hall to the guest room without a word. I didn't follow him. I didn't follow her when she went after him. The walls could have the last word on that conversation. My work now lived in folders and drives and printouts and timestamps, not in arguments. On the 4th day, I made another appointment. Not with any doctor Linda knew. Not with any hospital on Ryan's insurance. I carried the folder with me and the ultrasound, and the last soft thing I had left, a letter I had started to our baby in case I needed to say goodbye. When it was done, when the nurse left me in a recovery room with a warm blanket and eyes that understood, I texted one sentence to Ava. "It's over." Then I wrote another to Ryan. "I'll be at my mom's for a while. Papers are coming." The reply bubble pulsed, vanished, pulsed again. "Can I come get you?" "Please," he sent. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Nora." I put the phone face down and closed my eyes. The lavender from the fake diffuser wasn't here. The air smelled like saline and laundry. It smelled like something real. I spent the first 48 hours at my mother's place on the near west side, moving between her couch and the window like a tide. She didn't ask for a post-mortem. She made congee left tea and let the silence do its work. Ava handled the paperwork, irreconcilable differences, no claim on the River North condo premarital, no spousal support, clean split. I signed in my pages with a hand that barely shook. On day 3, Erin, Ryan's kid sister, texted that she was nearby with pastries. We hadn't been close, but she'd always been decent in a family that ran on subtext. She sat at my mom's table with a box of glazed crullers and a face that looked older than 22. "I won't stay long," she said, then did. Mom's been different. She keeps pulling out old photos, keeps saying if Ryan had married Liv, he'd remember his place. Erin's mouth thinned. I told her that's gross. She said I was ungrateful. "Thanks for telling me," I said. It changed nothing and confirmed everything. That afternoon, I stopped by the condo with Ava on FaceTime and a list in my notes: laptop charger, winter boots. The diffuser camera wiped and bagged. I expected the guest room door to be shut, expected lavender, pretending the air was kindness. Instead, Ryan was sitting on the edge of the sofa with an untouched glass of water and the look of someone who'd slept in a car. He stood like the floor was uneven. "Can we?" He gestured at the hallway. 5 minutes. No pressure. We talked in the office because the office has a door. He kept his hands on the back of the chair like he needed something solid. "I booked a hotel out near the river trail," he said. "I told my mom she can't stay here. She didn't hear me." His mouth twisted. "She accused me of choosing you over blood. I told her I was choosing decency." "Good," I said. "Choose it consistently." He winced deservedly. "I want to face this without you carrying it. Tonight. With the videos. With the lab report. No more euphemisms. You don't need my permission," I said, "but you have it." He glanced at the safe. "You kept a copy off-site." I nodded. "Cloud and Drive." "Okay." He exhaled. "Then if she breaks the TV, it's just a TV." I packed. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't ask me to stay and watch him be brave. That at least was growth. He called at 9:12 p.m. and asked me to answer on the first ring because he didn't want to lose his nerve. I went out to my mom's fire escape with a blanket and put him on speaker. The audio was above average. Theater. The reel starting my own voice, faint under the knocks. Linda's whisper clear as if she were standing on my landing. Then the album clip, the name Liv like a bruise in the air. Then the lab report, Ava's summary stapled on top. Ryan kept his voice level, prosecutor calm. "Mom, these herbs can induce contractions. You cooked them 3 days in a row." "I didn't know," Linda said. Her voice pitched up the gear she always reached for. June said, "June Chu is not a doctor," he said. "And she's Liv's mother." Silence. You could hear the HVAC. He tried again softer, but not weaker. Why knock at 3:17? Why whisper outside our door? Why the album? Why any of this? Tears on cue. Because I love you. He let that sit. That's not love. That's control. She tried pivoting to history. When your father died, I know what you did for me, he said. And even on the phone, I heard how much it cost him to show her that much mercy. That doesn't make this okay. You hurt Nora. You hurt me. You endangered our child. The word child cracked the air. She sobbed a rawer sound than before. Don't say that. It happened, he said. We lost a baby. You don't get to pretend your hands are clean. Her voice hardened naked wire under velvet. She was never right for you. She took you from me. I was putting things back. And that he said, finally, too tired to be kind, is why you can't live with me. A pause, then the break she hadn't believed would come. From now on, you don't get to call me at 3 a.m. You don't get keys to my places. If you want a relationship, it will be the one I define, not the one you script. She inhaled like a swimmer before a dive and went for her last, sharpest trick. After everything I gave you, she whispered, after everything I lost for you. I didn't ask you to lose yourself, he said, and I won't keep losing Nora to pay you back. He hung up without asking me how he'd done. He didn't need a gold star. The line went silent in my hands, and for the first time since the knocks started, I felt something like relief. Not peace yet, but relief. The divorce moved like a train that had finally found the track it was always meant to take. Ava filed. The court stamped. A mediator offered slots we didn't need because we had nothing to fight over except a story we'd already decided to stop telling. A week later, Ryan showed up at my mother's door with a cardboard carrier of chicken noodle soup and white lilies I could have predicted to the stem. He looked like he'd been awake for days, beard ghosting and shirt buttoned wrong, that slow-motion collapse behind the eyes. I'm not here to beg, he said, and then for a second looked like he might. He steadied. I'm here to sign. We sat at my mom's dining table, under the plant she always forgot to water. He read every page like a man who builds for a living and understands permanence. He put his pen to the last line and stopped. I should have believed you when you were whispering, he said. Not just when there were subtitles. I know I said, it wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a verdict. It was a fact. He signed. The signature came out crooked and heavy. He pushed the papers back, palms open like surrender. I sent my mother to a rental in Oak Park near Erin, he said. I'll pay for caregivers. I won't let her live with me again. That's your boundary, I said. Keep it. He nodded, stood, didn't try to hug me, didn't ask for a later. At the door, he paused, the old muscle memory battling with the new, aura. Take care of yourself, I said. That's the work. He left with the carrier, and the flowers still sitting between us, unanswered. Linda tried to go around him. She appeared at his office without an appointment, said she was his mother and would always be admitted. The receptionist, 26 Bun, like a gavel, told her to email. The partners told Ryan to take the afternoon. He went back to the hotel and lay on the bed in a suit like a man-shaped stone. Erin texted me updates I hadn't asked for and was grateful to receive. She's staying put, one read. He turned off her guest room key, read another. He's not drinking a third. He's quiet. I changed my number and forwarded my mail. I boxed the last of my winter things and left my spare key on Ava's desk like evidence I no longer needed. I archived a folder called Hail in 5 separate places, and then one by one removed those places from my phone. Every time the passcode screen slid away, the condo got a little smaller. A week after the decree hit our email, an envelope arrived at my mother's. Was seen Nias with Ryan's spiky printing. Inside a check for a number that felt like an apology and a note that didn't. I sent the check back with a post-it. Please stop trying to pay for what can't be bought. I kept the stamp. It had a lighthouse on it. That night, I slept 6 hours without waking to check a camera that no longer stared at my living room. When I dreamed, there were no hallways, no peepholes, no keys, just a door I could lock and unlock myself. 11 months later, my life fit into one carry-on and a lease on a 3rd-floor walk-up in Charleston. By day, I ran coastal campaigns for a hospitality group. By dusk, I learned crow pose on Folly Beach and burned my fingertips in a pottery studio that smelled like wet clay and hope. Thursdays were therapy. My mother called on Sundays to ask if the palmettos really sounded like rain when the wind went through them. They do. On a Sunslack Friday, I was splitting fish tacos with new friends when my phone buzzed. Subject: a late apology. From Ryan Hale. I slid the screen face down and let the ocean air salt my hair. The past can knock. I decide when to open. After dishes and a shower that steamed the bathroom mirror into mercy, I sat on the balcony with a blanket and tapped the email. Ryan didn't beg, he didn't blame. He wrote like a man filing an affidavit against himself. Nora, I know I forfeited the privilege of your attention. I'm writing for 2 reasons: to own what I broke and to give you the rest of the truth you're due. I spent the first month after you left sleeping in a hotel and pretending I was fine. Then I stopped pretending. I found a therapist. I stopped drinking. I started reading without the ending I wanted. I met with Jun Chu and later with Liv. He listed facts, not flourishes. The night after we split, he'd pulled every thread he could find. A friend in commercial lending ran a public records sweep. Lam Chu Textiles carried layered debt. Maxed credit lines, UCC liens from 2 regional banks. A bridge loan rolling into default. At the same time, emails surfaced from June to Linda Anti-Suite on the surface scaffolding underneath nudging, flattering, instructing. Get him back in rooms with developers. Remind him who opened doors for him in college. Family first, she is not family. When he confronted June, she deflected, then hardened. Everyone helps their children, she'd said. You're positioned. We needed a hand up. Liv arrived halfway through that conversation, eyes rimmed denial in one breath and confession in the next. She admitted she'd let her mother steer, said she told herself it was strategic we'd all win until the strategy required someone else's loss. I went home and put it all in front of my mother, your videos, the lab report, June's emails, the loan documents. She cried, then minimized, then cried again. For the first time in my life, I didn't translate any of it into love. I moved her to Oak Park, hired help, and changed my locks. I pay for care. I don't pay for control. I don't want anything from you. There is no ask at the end of this message. You were never crazy. You were never cruel. You were alone, and I made you fight alone. I'm sorry for the camera you needed to survive, for the baby we didn't get to meet, for every time I chose the story I was raised in over the truth in front of me. He closed with logistics. I hadn't asked for sobriety date, therapy cadence. The way he'd cut June out like a tumor that would take more than 1 surgery to remove, and a single line that wasn't a plea. You don't owe me absolution. I owed you the truth. I read it twice and felt the old ache flare, then soften into something less sharp. Not forgiveness. Not even reconciliation. Recognition. The map now matched the terrain I'd crawled across. I didn't answer that night. I put the kettle on and watched it shake toward a boil, then cool, then settle. In bed, I drafted responses. I didn't send angry ones, tender ones, petty ones, wise ones, then deleted them all and slept. Saturday, the day stretched bright and ordinary. I biked under live oaks, hung with Spanish moss, and watched a child in red rain boots jump through a sprinkler like it was a portal. In class, the pottery wheel centered under my palms for the first time in months. The cylinder rose steady. The instructor tapped the base and said, "Pressure's fine. Ease up your grip." That night on the balcony, I opened a new email and typed exactly 1 sentence. "Thank you for telling me everything. I'm okay. Please be well." No door reopened. No thread tugged loose. I pressed send, archived the entire chain, and set a new rule on my inbox that moved any message from R. Hale into a folder named Closed. The moon was a neat white thumbnail over the harbor. Somewhere beyond the marsh, a cargo ship wailed long, low leaving. I tucked my knees up under the blanket and let the sound go by without following it. 6 months after the email, the summer heat settled over Charleston like a warm hand. My life had edges again. Monday kickoffs at the agency, Tuesday glaze nights. My stubborn bowls finally taking Celadon without pinholes, Friday dawn yoga, where gulls heckled our sun salutations. The diffuser cam lived in a zip-top bag at the back of a closet, until on a nothing special Saturday, I carried it to an e-waste drop and watched it vanish into a blue bin. Some objects don't deserve a second life. That afternoon, my phone lit with Erin Hale. "Hey, Nora," she said, breathless from stairs. "Do you have a minute?" "Always." She exhaled. "Mom had a small stroke last month." It wasn't catastrophic, but there's weakness on her left side. Ryan moved her into an assisted living place in Oak Park. He's there every evening, brings easy crosswords, reads code books out loud so she has something to argue with. A sad smile in her voice. He's different. Quieter, sober. Boundaries are real. He pays for care, not compliance. He changed the locks, and this time didn't give her a key. I pictured a narrow window, a plastic cup of carnations, the clink of a pill sorter. "How are you?" I asked. "I'm okay," she said. "We both are. It's honest now." That helps. We traded logistics graduation dates, a new internship she'd landed, then let the call end where it wanted to, no lingering. Later on the beach, I wrote Linda's name in the firm sand, where the tide reaches only if it tries. Not to bless, not to curse, just to name what was true and let the water do what water does. Work sent me to Savannah for a 2-day site audit. On the way back, I detoured to a nursery and bought 3 small orchids with wonky stems. The clerk wrapped them in paper that whispered when I carried them upstairs. I set 2 on the sill and gave the 3rd to my neighbor, a retiree who bakes banana bread when it rains. "House is feeling like yours," she said, handing me still warm slices. "Took you long enough." "Yeah," I said, "it did." Therapy thinned from weekly to bi-weekly to check-ins. On our last standing Thursday, my therapist asked, "When you think about your marriage, now what word comes first?" "Scale," I said, without thinking. For a long time, I kept adding proof to one side, hoping it would tip. Now I put nothing on either side. I just step off. She nodded. "Keep choosing the ground." Ava visited for a weekend, and we didn't talk about the case files once. We ate hush puppies on a pier and heckled a paddleboard yoga class and fell asleep on the couch halfway through a documentary about mid-century signage. The next morning, she hugged me hard at the curb. "Proud of you," she said, then ruined it by adding, "Now date someone who doesn't own a keyring big enough to double as a weapon." Working on it, I said and meant both parts, the joke and the ease. In September, a padded envelope arrived with no return address. Inside, the silver gel pen photo from Linda's album, the one with college Ryan and Liv now creased at the corner. No note, no demand. Just a relic someone somewhere had decided not to keep. I fed it through my shredder inch by inch. The motor whirred, the strips curled. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt done. On a clear morning in October, I woke before my alarm. The harbor was glassy, the kind of still that asks you to breathe more quietly. I brewed coffee, opened my balcony door, and stood barefoot, the slats warm already. Across the water, a cargo ship's horn sounded long, low leaving. I let it pass through me without reaching back. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert I'd set months ago and forgotten annual screening, Northside Women's Health. I smiled at my past self for scheduling on a day I'd have nothing to cancel. I dressed. I locked my door. The key felt light in my palm. On King Street, a couple argued amiably over paint chips. A kid in a glitter cape sprinted after a dog who wanted very much to be chased. At a red light, a woman in a cherry red pickup laughed into her hands like the joke would save her life. The city moved around me, unbothered by the fact that a year ago I'd measured nights in knocks. At the clinic, the nurse asked my name and date of birth and whether I had any questions. I did, and I asked them. I left with answers and a next appointment and an orange lollipop. I didn't want, but took anyway. On the sidewalk, I unwrapped it, stuck it in my mouth, considered, then handed it to a toddler in line for the pharmacy with a conspiratorial emergency sugar. His mother mouthed thank you over his head. Back home, a text from Aaron pinged. He got a promotion. He didn't celebrate. Just went to Mom's with lasagna. Thought you'd want to know he's still doing the work. I typed glad he's okay. So am I. Sent it, archived the thread. Evening brought a salt breeze and neighbors' music muffled through walls. I opened all the windows, watered the orchids, set one bowl to trim on the wheel. Clay centered under my palms on the first try. The cylinder rose true. I eased my grip. It held. When night came, I didn't check cameras. There weren't any. I didn't listen for footsteps. There weren't any. I cracked the bedroom window to let in the tide and the slip of distant traffic, and the occasional, contented bark of a dog who knows where home is. I turned out the light. The dark was just dark. And the door this mattered most closed because I closed it and would open when I chose. Story 2. I've always considered myself someone who had his act together. But lately, I've started questioning everything. The tipping point, my dad's 62nd birthday party, a night that flipped my world upside down. To set the scene, I'd been a cornerstone of our family business for 12 long years. It wasn't just a job, it was my life. Late nights, missed vacations, and countless sacrifices, all in the hope that I'd inherit the company one day. After all, wasn't that the unspoken promise? When you pour your soul into something, the party was grand. Typical of my parents who loved showing off. The guest list had everyone, family, friends, business associates, you name it. The atmosphere was lively, drinks were flowing, the food was incredible, and people were laughing and mingling. I was enjoying myself, completely unaware of the storm brewing. Then came the toast. My dad stood up, glass in hand, and the room quieted. I expected the usual, a few dad jokes, a thank you to everyone, and maybe a bit about looking forward to retirement. Instead, he dropped a bombshell. He announced his retirement. And here's the kicker. Named my 22-year-old nephew, Kyle, as the next CEO. I froze. At first, I thought I'd misheard. Kyle! The kid barely out of business school. No real-world experience. Meanwhile, I'd been the one running the show for over a decade. My stomach dropped. The applause around the room felt like a betrayal. People congratulated Kyle as if he'd already proven himself worthy, while I sat there struggling to keep my composure. Don't get me wrong, I didn't hate Kyle. He's fine for casual chats at family dinners. But CEO the guy hadn't earned it. I built client relationships, managed teams, and grown the company year after year. And yet, my dad handed over the reins to someone with a shiny degree and zero experience. I needed air. My wife found me moments later, my expression apparently giving me away. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. I just shook my head. "Not now," I muttered. I needed time to process the gut punch I'd just been dealt. Later that night, once the guests had left and the house was quiet, I confronted my dad. I was still clinging to the hope that there was some misunderstanding. Maybe Kyle's appointment was symbolic. Maybe I'd still play a key role. Nope. Dad doubled down, saying he believed Kyle's youth and fresh ideas were the future. Oh, and his degree. Because apparently, a diploma trumps over a decade of actual experience. "You can mentor him," he added casually, as if throwing me a bone. That was the final straw. I couldn't stay, not as a subordinate to someone I knew wasn't ready. It wasn't about the title or the money. It was the principle. I'd earned that position, and being passed over was a slap in the face. So I resigned. It felt like cutting off a piece of myself, walking away from something I'd poured my life into. But staying would have been worse. My wife was my rock through it all. "You did the right thing," she told me. Her unwavering support meant everything. Because honestly, the rest of my family didn't get it. My mom begged me to reconsider. My dad even showed up unannounced one day, trying to guilt me into coming back. But I stood firm. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Not by a long shot. The weeks after I quit were a blur. At first, I thought stepping away from the family business would bring me peace, but the weight of betrayal sat heavy on my chest. Every time I replayed the conversation with my dad, it stung all over again. I kept wondering if I'd been too rash. Maybe I could have handled it differently, but no matter how I turned it over in my mind, one thing stayed clear. I couldn't work under Kyle. Leaving was my only option. It wasn't just about me anymore. My wife reminded me that I deserved respect. Not just loyalty, they didn't see your worth, she said one night as we talked in hushed voices on the couch. Why would you stay and let them treat you like that? Still, I couldn't help but keep tabs on the company. I told myself I didn't care. But let's be real, I cared a lot. This wasn't just a business to me. It was 12 years of my blood, sweat, and tears. So when the whispers started trickling in, I listened. It began with small things. A friend who still worked there messaged me out of the blue. Kyle just fired. 3 senior managers said they didn't get his vision. I stared at my phone, half laughing, half fuming. These weren't just employees. They were the backbone of the company, people who'd helped build it from the ground up. Firing them was like shooting holes in a sinking ship. The next thing I heard, Kyle was restructuring contracts. Apparently, he wanted to modernize our long-standing agreements with clients. That might have been fine if he'd done his homework. But Kyle, he bulldozed through years of carefully nurtured relationships. Clients were confused, frustrated. And then they started leaving, one by one. The names I'd worked so hard to secure disappeared from the roster. Still, my parents defended him. He just needs time. My mom told a mutual friend. He's figuring things out. Sure. Figuring out how to tank the company. But then came the big one. Financial fraud. From what I pieced together, Kyle tried to inflate the company's numbers to impress a major client. Rookie move. Not only did he get caught, but the fallout was brutal. The company's reputation. Something I'd spent years building was shredded. Clients bailed faster than rats on a sinking ship, and lawsuits. Oh, they piled up. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I knew it was coming, but that didn't make it any easier to see. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. Sure. Part of me wanted to shout, "I told you so," but mostly it hurt. I'd poured over a decade into building something meaningful, and now it was crumbling in Kyle's hands. Worse, my parents still wouldn't admit that they'd made a mistake. Every time someone brought up the company's struggles, they had an excuse. Kyle's under a lot of pressure. My mom would say he's still learning. No, he wasn't. He was floundering. The call started soon after old coworkers reached out venting about how bad things had gotten. It's a disaster. One guy told me the office feels like a sinking ship. Honestly, I don't know how much longer I can stay. Hearing that was bittersweet. On the one hand, it felt good to know people appreciated the work I'd done. On the other hand, it reminded me how powerless I was to stop the mess Kyle was creating. This wasn't my problem anymore, and I wasn't about to get dragged back into it. Still, the guilt nagged at me, especially for the people who'd stuck by me for years. Meanwhile, my parents doubled down on their bad decisions. My sister Kyle's mom was his loudest cheerleader, insisting he was just misunderstood. "He's a visionary," she said at one point. A visionary. The guy couldn't even balance a budget. One day I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. They asked, "How's the company doing under Kyle? Must be exciting to see him step up." I forced a smile and said, "Exciting isn't the word I'd use." They laughed, but I wasn't joking. By this point, I'd started brainstorming ideas for my own business. My wife encouraged me to move on to build something new, something that was mine. "You've got the skills," she said. "Why not take the leap?" It was scary, sure, but also exhilarating. For the first time in years, I was thinking about my future, not my family's expectations. Still, the shadow of the old company loomed over me. I tried to ignore the whispers about its decline, but they were impossible to avoid. Every new disaster felt like a reminder of how little my parents had valued my work. But I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't going back. 6 months had passed since I'd walked out of the family business. I thought I'd finally moved on. But life had other plans. One afternoon, as I was going over some ideas for a new venture, the inevitable happened. My parents showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door to find them standing there looking older and more stressed than I'd ever seen them. My dad's jaw was tight, his hands shoved deep into his coat pocket. My mom had that look, the one she gave when she needed something but didn't want to admit it. "Can we come in?" my dad asked, his voice hesitant. I paused for a moment, debating whether to slam the door or hear them out. Eventually, I stepped aside and motioned them in. My wife caught my eye as she passed through the kitchen, her expression saying, "Everything, you've got this." She slipped upstairs, leaving me alone to face the music. We sat in awkward silence for a minute, before my mom finally spoke. "We need your help," she said, her voice shaky. "The business. It's in trouble. Kyle made some mistakes. Big ones. No kidding." I just sat there, letting the silence stretch. It was clear they wanted me to jump in to fix everything like I always had. I didn't. I waited until my dad spoke up. "He's in over his head," he admitted, rubbing his temples like the weight of the world rested there. "And now we're facing lawsuits, losing clients. We're barely hanging on. For years I dreamed of this moment. I imagined them coming to me hats in hand, begging me to save the company. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I felt annoyed. It wasn't satisfying, it was just sad. "And what exactly do you expect me to do about it?" I finally asked. My tone wasn't angry, but it wasn't kind either. My mom reached out, placing her hand on mine. "You know the business better than anyone. We need you to come back. Please." Her words hit me harder than I expected for years. All I'd wanted was for them to see my value, to recognize everything I'd done. And now here they were, practically begging. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like an insult. I pulled my hand away. "Why don't you ask Kyle?" I said, my voice steady. "He's the CEO, right? Let him fix it." My dad sighed heavily, leaning back in his chair. "We made a mistake," he said, his voice low. "We thought he'd bring something new to the table, but he wasn't ready. You were right." Hearing him admit that should have felt good. But it didn't. It just made me angrier. They'd had every opportunity to listen to me, but they didn't. And now they wanted me to clean up their mess. "I'm sorry," my mom said, her eyes welling up with tears. "We were wrong. We should have trusted you, but it's not too late. You can still fix this." I stood up and started pacing, the anger bubbling up despite my best efforts to stay calm. "You want me to fix it?" I asked, my voice rising. "You think I can just walk back in and magically make everything better? Do you even hear yourselves?" They didn't respond, and the silence only fueled my frustration. "You didn't trust me before, but now that you're desperate, I'm suddenly good enough. Do you even realize what you're asking? You want me to put my life on hold again, to bail you out of a situation you created?" "It's not about that," my dad said firmly. "It's about saving the company, saving our legacy." "Your legacy," I shot back. "Not mine, not anymore." My mom broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. My dad just sat there staring at the floor, like he didn't know what to do. For a moment, I felt bad. They were my parents, after all. But then I remembered the humiliation, the betrayal, the countless nights I'd stayed late while they praised Kyle for his good grades. "I can't help you," I said finally, my voice steady. "I won't. I've already started working on something for myself. I'm not going to throw that away to clean up your mess." My dad's face hardened. "So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on your family?" I laughed bitterly. "You turned your back on me first. Don't try to guilt me into this. It won't work." They left shortly after that. My mom was still sniffling, and my dad looked like he wanted to argue but didn't have the energy. As soon as the door closed behind them, I let out a shaky breath. My wife came downstairs and wrapped her arms around me. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "You don't owe them anything." She was right. I knew that, but it still hurt. Walking away from the company had been hard enough. Walking away from my parents, that was even harder. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything they'd said. A part of me wanted to step in. Not for them, but for myself. For the employees and clients who deserved better. But another part of me knew it wasn't my responsibility anymore. They'd made their choice. Now they had to live with it. After slamming the metaphorical door on my parents, something shifted in me. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of clarity. I'd spent too long stewing over what had happened, replaying the betrayal like a broken record. But now it was time to stop looking back and start figuring out my future. Starting from scratch was terrifying. I didn't have a fancy office, a team, or even a fully formed plan. What I did have were my skills, experience, and a fire in my belly to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own. Real estate was my wheelhouse, so that part was easy. But I didn't just want to recreate my dad's company. I wanted something better, something that reflected my values. My parents had always run their business like a machine, churning out deals with little regard for the people involved. I wanted to build something different, personal, human. I started small, reaching out to old clients I'd worked with for years. I explained that I was starting my own business and asked if they'd be interested in working together again. To my surprise, most of them were not only interested, they were thrilled. "We've been waiting for you to get back in the game," one client said. "Mike's been a disaster." Their enthusiasm was the confidence boost I needed. If they believed in me, maybe I could pull this off. After all, next I needed a team. That's where my old coworkers came in. I'd kept in touch with a few after leaving my dad's company and knew they were just as frustrated as I'd been. One by one, I made calls. "Hey, I'd say I'm putting something together. It's small right now, but I think it has potential. Are you interested?" The responses were overwhelmingly positive. Many of them had already left my dad's company. tired of the chaos under Kyle's leadership. I've been waiting for this call. One person told me within a couple of weeks, I had a small but solid team. We didn't have a shiny office or state-of-the-art equipment, just a shared workspace and a lot of enthusiasm. It reminded me of the early days of my dad's company back when we were scrappy and hungry. Except this time, it was my vision, my rules. Setting up the business was a whirlwind between registering the company, building a website, and figuring out marketing. I barely had time to breathe, but every small win, a client signing on a lead turning into a deal, felt monumental. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of doubt when I questioned if I'd taken on more than I could handle. Balancing finances, logistics, and client relationships was overwhelming at times. But whenever I felt like giving up, I reminded myself why I was doing this. I wasn't just building a business. I was proving to myself that I could. The biggest challenge, though, was balancing work and my personal life. My wife was my rock through all of it, but I could see the stress in her eyes. She was working full-time while I poured every ounce of energy into my new venture. "You're going to burn out if you keep this up," she warned one night as I hunched over my laptop reviewing contracts. I know, I admitted, rubbing my temples, but if I don't push now, it'll never take off. She didn't argue, but her concern was a reminder that I needed to find a better balance. I made a mental note to figure it out, though I wasn't sure how just yet. Despite the stress, things started falling into place. Our first few deals went smoothly, and the feedback from clients was overwhelmingly positive. "This feels like the old days," one of them said, when things were simpler, more personal. I missed this. Hearing that was like a shot of adrenaline. It validated everything I was working toward. Meanwhile, I couldn't ignore the news trickling in about my dad's company. Things were going from bad to worse. Clients were leaving in droves, and the lawsuits were piling up. Employees were quitting faster than they could be replaced. It was hard not to feel a twinge of satisfaction, but mostly I felt sorry for the people caught in the crossfire. What surprised me most was how many of those people started coming to me. Former coworkers reached out asking if I was hiring clients who had stuck with my dad's company longer than I expected. Began contacting me. "If you're looking for more staff, let me know." One old colleague said, "I can't stand it here anymore. We've always trusted you." An old client emailed me, "Let's talk." I wasn't poaching. They came to me, and honestly, it felt good. These were people who recognized my value, who wanted to work with me because of what I brought to the table. By the end of the second month, we'd outgrown our shared workspace and started looking for a proper office. It was a small milestone, but to me, it felt huge. Standing in that empty space, imagining the possibilities, I couldn't help but smile. This was mine. All of it. No one could take it away from me. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. And for the first time in years, I felt free. By the time my new business was gaining traction, the cracks in my family's empire had turned into chasms. Clients kept leaving. Employees were quitting en masse. Kyle the golden boy was nowhere to be found half the time. From what I heard through old coworkers, he'd practically stopped showing up to the office. Rumor had it he was drowning his stress at local bars during work hours. Meanwhile, my parents were scrambling desperately, trying to salvage what was left. I didn't gloat. I wasn't that petty. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel a little cathartic. This wasn't just about their bad decisions. It was about years of being overlooked, years of my work being taken for granted. Now they were seeing the consequences. At first, they tried subtle ways to get me back. Emails from my dad started showing up in my inbox, all variations of the same plea. "Let's talk." Or, "Can we work this out?" I ignored them. Then came the calls from my mom. They started as once-a-week check-ins, but when I didn't answer, they turned into daily voicemails. One in particular stuck with me. Her voice trembled, a mix of anger and desperation. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You're tearing this family apart. I don't know how you can live with yourself." I deleted the voicemail without replying. What was there to say? They'd created this mess. They could clean it up. But the final straw came from my sister. Unlike my parents, who at least tried to appeal to my sense of duty, she went straight for the jugular. One day, I received a letter from a lawyer. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but as I read it, my stomach sank. My family was accusing me of stealing clients and employees. The letter claimed I was intentionally sabotaging their business by poaching key accounts and personnel. It was laughable. I checked my contract twice before resigning. There was no non-compete clause, no restrictions. They had no legal standing whatsoever. Still, the audacity of it infuriated me. Instead of reaching out to take responsibility for their failures, they were trying to pin it on me. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer with a simple note: "Handle this." He assured me it was an empty threat. And it was. But it still left a bad taste in my mouth. Not long after my parents showed up at my office unannounced. It was the first time they'd seen the new space, and I could tell it wasn't sitting well with them. My mom's lips were tight, her eyes darting around like she was judging every detail. My dad, on the other hand, just looked defeated. "Do you really think this is going to work?" he asked, gesturing vaguely at the office. "You're playing a dangerous game." I leaned back in my chair unbothered. "It's already working," I said simply. "And it's not a game." My mom's face flushed with anger. "You're ruining everything," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family, to us?" I stood up, keeping my voice calm but firm. "What I'm doing," I said, "is building something for myself. Something you didn't think I was capable of. If that bothers you, that's your problem, not mine." They didn't stay long after that. I think they realized there was no point in trying to guilt me anymore. But their visit left me shaken, not because of what they said, but because it confirmed something I had suspected for a while. This wasn't just about the business. It was about control. For years, I'd been the dependable one, the one they could count on to keep things running smoothly. The one who sacrificed nights, weekends, and vacations to make their dream a reality. And now that I was gone, they didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. Clients were signing on, employees were motivated, and the team was growing. I even hired a marketing firm to help us expand, and the results were almost immediate. Inquiries started pouring in one night as I was reviewing our financials. My wife walked in with a glass of ginger ale. She sat down next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. "You know," she said, "I don't think I've ever seen you this happy." I smiled, setting the papers aside. "It feels good," I admitted, building something for myself, not answering to anyone else. She wrapped her arms around me. "You deserve this." Her words stayed with me long after she went to bed. For so long, I'd been chasing someone else's approval. My parents, my family, even Kyle in some twisted way. But now I was finally doing something for me. And for the first time in years, I didn't care what anyone else thought. Months passed, and the gap between my new life and my family's crumbling business grew wider. My team had settled into our new office, and the steady growth of the business gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about the clients or the deals. It was about the freedom of building something on my own terms. Meanwhile, the news from my parents' company was grim. A former coworker who'd recently joined my team filled me in on the details. The lawsuits had drained them financially, and clients were still leaving in droves. My dad was forced to sell the office building our company's home since day one. Hearing that was surreal. It's practically a ghost town over there. My coworker said the few employees left are only staying because they have nowhere else to go. It wasn't schadenfreude I felt. If anything, I just felt done. The building, the company, even the legacy I had helped create. It wasn't mine anymore. It was a relic of a life I'd outgrown. Then one day, I got an email from my dad. The subject line read an apology. I almost deleted it without reading it. After everything that had happened, what could he possibly say? But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. To my surprise, it wasn't a plea for help or an attempt to guilt me. It was an actual apology. I thought I was doing what was best for the family, he wrote. But I see now that I let my pride get in the way. I listened to your sister because I didn't want to admit I was wrong about Kyle. You were the one who deserved that position, and I'm sorry for not recognizing it sooner. The email went on recounting moments from the past I hadn't thought about in years. He admitted how much he'd relied on me in the early days, and how the company wouldn't have survived without my contributions. Toward the end, he wrote something that stuck with me. "I know I can't fix what's happened, but I hope someday you'll find it in your heart to forgive me." I closed the email without replying. Forgiveness is complicated. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. But I wasn't ready to let them back into my life either. They were still clinging to the past, and I'd worked too hard to leave it behind. My business continued to grow slowly but steadily. Former clients of my dad's company kept reaching out looking for stability in the chaos Kyle had created. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to feel like I was capitalizing on their downfall. But after talking with a few of them, I realized they weren't just looking for a deal. They wanted someone they could trust. By the time we moved into an even bigger office, I had a team I was proud of, and clients who genuinely appreciated what we offered. It wasn't about proving my parents wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could thrive on my own. As for Kyle, the last I heard, he'd moved back in with my sister. The lawsuits had been settled, but the financial damage was done. From what I gathered, he was trying to find himself, which was a nice way of saying he was lost. I didn't feel sorry for him. He'd been handed an opportunity he wasn't ready for, and he squandered it. That was on him. My sister predictably wasn't handling the fallout well. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that she'd grown bitter, blaming everyone but herself for how things turned out. My parents, once her staunchest defenders, had stopped making excuses for her. It was strange seeing the family dynamics unravel from the outside. For years, I'd let their expectations, their disappointment, and their manipulation define me. But now I was free. One day, as I sat in my office, looking out at the city skyline, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I wasn't trying to prove myself to people who would never value me. I was building something for myself, for my wife, for the people who believed in me. And that was enough. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my family. Maybe someday. When the dust has truly settled, we'll find a way to mend the broken pieces. Or maybe we won't. Either way, I'm okay with it. For the first time in years, I'm looking forward, not back. And for the first time in years, my future feels like my own.